In case you can't tell by the background, Brian White is once again out on the road for you, for his crowd, for my crowd, gathering together the real news. Where are you?
I'm in Tampa still, and yes, I am your Willie Nelson. I am on the road again. I was out for Cyberfest and Furious this past weekend. It was a really crazy event. There was drag strip racing where you could drag race your car. There was track racing where you could go out and drift your Cybertruck or Model 3 or Plaid or whatever you want. It was pretty bonkers. Good vendors, good resources, lots of folks here, and I had a chance to talk with some, of course, people who can make me smarter, which is what it seems you're trying to tap into.
That's
So
what I'm trying.
very smart. I'll be your maple tree.
Yes, that is what we're trying to tap into to the extent, never mind. It was such a setup, but I'm not going to go there.
Probably for the best. Yeah, yeah. That's my professional analysis.
That's your, well, there again, you're setting me up again. You're professional and never mind. Okay. So 2026
Heard of it. Mm-hmm.
has been on my mind since
Mm.
April of 2023 when I did my first story on 2026. And I did multiple stories about how 2026 was going to be the year when we get everything. Everything comes together. And you were just at the Austin factory. You took the tour. You
Yes.
you were among the glitterati of our world.
Yes.
So help me be a little more clear on where we are as we're almost ready to enter December of 2025, just 43 days away from the new year. Can we start with current sales though? Let's start with current sales. There's no deals. There's no promotions. There's no discounts on Tesla being announced anywhere in the world to speak of. A little here, a little, but nothing like you might expect if sales were so horrible. What do you think?
Where are the bargains? The best deal I've seen right now is if you use a referral link, you'll get not 1 month, but 3 months of FST. That's great. For 90% of buyers, that doesn't mean anything. In 90% of markets, that doesn't mean anything. There are people who won't use it. There are people who don't have access to it at all. But it's better than nothing, but it definitely costs Tesla almost precisely nothing. At most, it costs $200 on 12% of cars. Fine. Not a big incentive. We're not even seeing things like free colors or free little things. So that suggests to me that sales are doing pretty good. Yes, the IRA credit is gone. A lot of sales that we expected to see in Q4 were pulled back into Q3 by people who knew they were going to get a car in the next 3 months, placed their order, figured as good a time as any. And there are still a lot of people who put in orders on September 30th for the Performance Model Y, the new Performance Model Y. Those aren't even really available much at all. So there is going to be those sales as well. Those are still being pulled back into Q4 from Q3. This may be a weak sales quarter in the US. Internationally, it should be just fine. We're seeing the usual 2019 doom and gloom stupidity out of the mainstream media. Oh my gosh, China's sales collapsed. Also, they had a record month of exports. Guys, those are ships. You can't sell them while they're still on the ship. So let it arrive, then we'll see. In terms of sales, I'm not worried. And in terms of the factory, which is the next part of your question, what's going on there? Well, Tesla says they're going to make more cars, but how can they? They canceled Giga Mexico, and there's no construction on new car factories, right? But Texas and Berlin have surplus capacity. They have additional capacity. They could just bring on more shifts and substantially increase output before you even mention the fact that in Texas, they have a lot of space in that building that has yet to be utilized for anything other than storage. So there's opportunities there as well.
So speaking of China, we haven't been getting our weekly data out of China anymore. For some reason, those insurance numbers aren't coming anymore. So we're kind of like flying blind with regard to that. And then Troy took a month off. I don't know what he was doing, but He literally said that he's not going to charge the Patreon members for that month he was gone. And but he's come in finally came out today with a very low estimate for quarter four. I'm not going to give his actual number taking into consideration it's a Patreon number for now.
Smart.
But let's just say he's under 445,000, which is the street number. But he doesn't say anything in his analysis about what you and I just discussed, which is if the numbers are that low, why aren't there deals? Now, I'm going to throw out one other idea and then I'll let you go. Somebody said, well, Tesla knew it was going to be a soft quarter, so they've pulled back production. We saw the production numbers out of China for October, and the production numbers were kind of soft, but there was also a holiday in that period. Do you think that Tesla is just trying to meet the market right now and make margins, or did you see anything in Texas to suggest that they were cutting back? I mean, what do you think about all this?
And now I can go?
Yeah, you can go.
Okay, see you later. Right. So, Tesla has always scaled supply to demand as best possible. I'm still seeing people periodically on X and YouTube saying, right, but Tesla sells every car they make. Well, yes, but they only make as many cars as they can sell. They could make more cars if they had eager buyers waiting to get them. If another Hertz type deal came along and said, we need 100,000 cars over the next 6 months, Tesla would absolutely ramp to build them. And maybe not adding a whole shift just so they could terminate that shift after 6 months. But if the demand was sustained, they would just increase the number of shifts. It's hard to play the parking lot counting game because it's wildly inaccurate. It doesn't give it can give you a barometer, but it won't tell you the temperature. So it is tough to say what's going on. I've seen nothing that would indicate a serious pullback in global demand. The China numbers to me look fine. We did have a softness there a little bit, but like you said, there was a holiday in October. The weekly reporting was something we never used to get. That's new in the last 2 or 3 years. And going back to monthly reporting it surprises me a bit, but it doesn't seem that crazy. Other countries don't report weekly. Many countries don't report weekly. The US doesn't report at all.
Right.
And that's a fairly large automotive market. It does make the guessing game more complicated for a lot of folks. In terms of Troy's number being on the low side, below Wall Street, my question would be, I know I can't see Troy's posts. He has me blocked, but in the past, Troy's beginning of quarter numbers and middle of quarter numbers look very, very, very different than his end of quarter numbers. In that regard, he would be predicting, it's very easy to predict the Shanghai numbers. There you go. Over a third, probably close to half of the numbers are already set in stone. You can just post those and guess on the rest. But without weekly numbers, it's harder to do that. So I would ask what his middle of quarter numbers have looked like historically compared to end of quarter. Wall Street's at 445. That doesn't seem crazy to me. Wall Street did a pretty good job last time, which is new. But it's also not Wall Street. It is a combination of Wall Street. So we don't know who the outliers were. We don't know how many you have to include to get numbers that are actually good. I'm not concerned about production. If I asked you about production in a random quarter a year or two ago, I wouldn't expect you to know or care what it is. And I think this will also not go down in history. Even if this is the biggest quarter we ever have so far to date for Tesla, royal we, I don't think it'll be particularly historic. The ones that were historic were the ones that really moved the stock, really proved that the numbers were real and sustainable. And even those, I can't tell you which quarters those were.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So, all right, we'll leave it at something between 400,000 and 500,000 is probably a good guess.
Very reasonable.
And probably none of those numbers, maybe if it dropped under 400,000, will impact the stock going forward, since the emphasis has now switched to other products and other services, in particular robotaxi. But before we get all the way over there, can we talk about semi? I know you've been paying a lot of attention to the semi facility in Reno. I keep thinking that we could be any day now that we would start to see preliminary production coming out of that factory. What do you see?
It's not going to be any day. Last drone footage I saw, the equipment for the paint shop was still outside.
Oh,
Got to put that inside, maybe connect it to something. Then we can produce. I had been expecting to see some production at the very end of this year. I no longer expect that. I do expect to see the line in motion in Q1. What Zangler called it, the drone pilot who covers the factory, is he said that they recently hit max Q. This is probably the point at which the most workers, the most equipment, the most everything is visible on site. The parking lot is awfully full, though some of that is overflow parking from the LFP factory just down the street. It's a little shuttle that runs between them. As that factory gets ramped, we'll see fewer cars, but the parking lot is pretty full. And a lot of the parking lot is full of equipment that hasn't been put inside yet. There are contractors out there. You're seeing empty crates being piled up and carted off every day. It's busy. And he did an early morning shoot where you could see inside. You could see the morning work meeting where they talk about, I don't know, I assume they swap recipes. I don't know. And you got a good sense of how many people were there. And it's busy. Everywhere you look, there's someone doing something. This factory will be up and running fairly soon. The new information we have is Semi's going to use 4680.
yeah.
Now, does that mean, it's interesting. They said Cybercab will use it.
Yeah.
Optimus will use it.
Yeah.
Cybertruck will use it,
Yeah.
and Semi.
Yeah.
And to me, that's too many batteries. They don't have the capacity. Maybe they've gotten something sorted out at Texas. I'm skeptical, but it's also possible that they're going to be getting other 4680s from other manufacturers. Panasonic has not a tabless design, but I think it was a 3-tab or 5-tab design, still better than the old single tab. That would be easier to manufacture, but wouldn't allow you the same kind of high drain. So that might be good for something like a Semi, where you're not needing, straight line 0 to 60 power, all the juice at once kind of acceleration. It might be good for Optimus because that's more about running for hours than running at a dead sprint. So, but in any case, and the Cybercab we know is form factor and chemistry agnostic, because they plan to build it in other countries where 4680s do not exist and are not likely to exist. So they can use whatever. So that's the other news on the Semi. 4680s. There could be some 4680 production coming out of Giga Nevada as well, but I haven't seen any movement on that.
Yeah, so the news that we did have at one of the two meetings just passed was that the dry cathode approach was probably a mistake, but that it's now up and running, and that could give us a hint. Even though Elon could have gone further and said that's going to allow us to make a lot of 4680s, but if the dry cathode factory is now up and running, that would give us the opportunity to get that 4680 line going.
Entirely possible. Either of those, I think we've been at it long enough that they know if it's solvable, they probably solved it. If it's not solvable, they probably pivoted. You can still use the other electrodes. It doesn't harm the battery. It just makes it it doesn't degrade it or diminish it. It just makes it a little more complicated and expensive to manufacture, or at least space consuming.
All right. So obviously, so you got a chance to go on the factory floor down in Giga, Texas, and I'm guessing you might have learned something about the Cybercab and the unbox process. Fill us in on what you learned.
So first point of clarification is we didn't see the Cybercab line.
Right.
We saw the factory floor with some Cybercab exhibits on it.
Oh,
I know it's a little confusing because a lot of different people who were on these various tours said, yes, I was in the factory tour and here's what I saw about Cybercab. Easy to make
yeah.
that leap, but we did not see the Cybercab production area. It wasn't on the same floor as us. It wasn't in the same section of the factory. It would have been a considerable hike to get there. I would have loved to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Not an option. Um, I've told this story a few times on other shows, but the interesting thing was when I went up to an employee, I said, the tour's over here, right? Yeah, yeah. I said, now, this isn't just a catwalk tour above final assembly, because I've seen that, and that's not worth my time. And he said, no, Brian, you will want to see this. I'm like, ooh, okay. So I guess that there is a sign up with a picture of me that says, don't take checks from this guy. Keep it next to the register. It's handy. I did actually make that joke to a important,
Oh,
employee at Tesla, and they assured me there is no such sign.
yeah.
Promising. So what did I see? Well, the first thing you see when you walk in is a mock-up of what unboxed means. It's a car that's been taken apart into its side panels, its front section, back section, and body. Basically 5 pieces. And each of them is on rolling wheels. So they could just walk them together to show you these are all put together separately, and then they go on the car. These are put together. They just push them all together and said, ta-da, a car. Don't lean on it. It'll come apart again because this is just a visual representation. Don't touch it. Okay. You're looking at it a little intently. I don't care for that. But if you struggle to understand unboxed, and some do, this paints a very simple, very clear picture of how it works. With a regular car, it's like building something layer by layer. You can't start at the top. You can't start in the middle. With something like this, it's more like modern electronics, the way you would put together a phone. You've got all these pieces, and then you move it to the next section where all of the big pieces are put into the final piece. That's what they're doing.
Were you close enough to see the Lego, the male part and the female part, like the Lego snap together that they're
Nope,
going to use? No, no.
nope. And I don't know if it was even on that one. I don't even know what the method is. So, but this was very much a mock-up of how it would work. And we got to see the end of line for the Model Ys. We got to see the cars driving out unattended all by themselves. That was fun. And it was all during the event. You could just see them going right past you. In there, we also got to see some of the Cybertruck assembly. Not very exciting. We've seen a lot of footage of it. We know what it looks like. There were nothing new, no surprises. So on this, the excitement, the real part of the show you wanted to see was the little exhibits they set up for the Cybercab. That was the first one. The second one was the wiring harness. And the guy showed it to us and said, look at this. Isn't it complicated? Well, there were too many of us on the tour who knew. I was there with Xander and Cern, and we looked at it and said, no, that's the most simple wiring harness. I could diagram that wiring harness. No, it's not complicated at all. But there were 2 revelations in it. The first was you could tell it was 48 volt by the gauge of the wiring, but also, and you could see the connectors, the LAN connectors, for lack of a better word, but they are proprietary. It's a new standard because that's what standards need, is new standards. And they were sheathed, so you couldn't see the wires themselves. But at the end, there was about a ½ inch that was exposed. And you could see that to each wheel, there was a wire of a gauge that was too thick for TPMS, for example. What's it for? Well, clearly that's for brake-by-wire. We knew they were trying to do this. We knew they are counting on it for the sake of the unboxed method. You don't want hydraulic lines running the length of the car in an unboxed method. It defeats it. And these wires confirm that is their intent. We don't know for certain if it'll be on the first ones because mass-produced vehicles have not had brake-by-wire in the past, but Tesla has a unique opportunity to do it, in part because the technology has matured. Brembo has been testing their system for 10 years, and in part because you have a fail-safe. It's the motors. If the brakes were to completely fail, the car that can get you from 0 to 60 in 5, 10 seconds, whatever, can get you from 60 to 0 in the same amount of time with just regenerative braking. So that's another possibility. Final thing on the wiring harness was in the robotaxis, if you look in the rear window, you'll see a little black box up in the glass. That's clearly a communications module. Well, why does it need it? The car already has 5G. It needs it. It probably has a 5G, much better signal, much better placement for the antenna, can get a radio, a cell signal in places where you and I might not be able to get as good of a connection. But it probably also has Starlink backup. That way, you don't have a ravine on the edge of town that has poor reception where all of a sudden you've got 6 cars stranded that don't know how to escape.
Right.
That's something that we've seen with Waymo where they get stuck in a dead end and all of a sudden they're trapped. And that's even with coverage, but that's a Waymo issue. So it likely has that kind of better communication. It's a module that goes right up in the top. It looks like it goes right above the headliner in the car. And if the top is a composite plastic, basically, it'll get a nice clear signal through that out to space. So that helps. The last thing we saw on the Cybercab line was the motor. And it wasn't one motor. They had an old Model 3 kind of motor. They had a plaid motor. They had 4 motors in total. And the newest one, the Cybercab motor. Isn't it incredibly small compared to the others? And I looked at it and said, no. No, it's actually quite a bit bigger than I expected because you don't need horsepower for this car. You don't want horsepower. You want efficiency. And because it was the size of a large turkey, rather than we've seen motors from other companies that are the same size that can put out 500, 600, 700 horsepower. Why would it be so bulky for such low horsepower? I asked, is this as big as it is because you're not using rare earth materials in the magnets? Mm-hmm. And he said, that's a question I can't answer for you. Or rather, I think he said, that's a topic we are not supposed to discuss. And I say, loud and clear, my friend, loud and clear. It would make sense. You can give up a little bit of space and a little bit of weight if it means your motor costs hundreds of dollars less, perhaps even thousands less, and you plan on making millions and millions of them.
Yes.
Yeah. And that also insulates you from international political drama.
Yes. All right. So that's very cool. What about...
I know.
Obviously, the big 2 issues for 2026 will be Robotaxi and Optimus. Update me to your sense of where those 2 projects are right now, based on having ridden around in a Robotaxi, having been there among all the smart people. What do you think is going to happen with these 2?
So on Robotaxi, I did get to take a couple rides. They went great. And of course, I talked to people. I interviewed Josh West, who has done probably the second most Robotaxi rides of anyone behind Joe Tegmeyer. Maybe not 100, but around there, a number much too high to count. And all weekend, he was just taking people like me, just dragging us around town in circles to get the full experience. And of course, a number of people from out of town got to experience it for the first time. Where are we at with it? We don't know. To me, the limit is, what is the ratio of people back at HQ watching to vehicles on the road? If that ratio is 1-to-1, you can't really grow yet. But getting from 1-to-1 to 1-to-2 seems quite reasonable. And at that point, you can double the number of cars without changing anything at HQ. Go to 3-to-1, add another 50%. That's when we're going to start seeing things get exciting as we get to 10-to-1. If we get to 100-to-1, roll it out, baby. It's ready to go. And to the people concerned that, well, we well, we need to get all these approvals. We really don't. We really don't. The federal one says only 2,500 cars, but anyone who's ever requested a waiver has gotten a waiver.
Oh, yeah.
Waivers are effortless to get. It used to be 2,500 for all brands combined for all years of production combined. And anyone who wanted a waiver just applied and got a waiver. Zooks didn't apply for a waiver. They just operated. Yeah, it's easier to get permission than to get forgiveness than permission, I guess. So the approval should be reasonably easy to get. Changing the rules is very easy. It hasn't happened yet, but it doesn't require an act of Congress. It requires the swipe of a pen.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's unclear if anyone at NHTSA or the Transportation Bureau knows what a pen is or how to read or write, but I'm confident someone there can teach them.
That's pretty funny that you should say that, because I just did a post about the fact that, yes, I do still own a pen. In fact, it's right here on my side table. It's used about twice a week. So I would actually prefer that NHTSA not know how to use a pen.
That one looks like it says
they would be doing everything on computers and cell phones and whatnot.
That one looks like it says fidelity title.
What it said. I can't even read it. It would be Pregnancy and Family Resource Center. That's what it would be.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad that you have access to that. That's important to me. I have a pen. It says Mars Mission 1. Christopher Lee Jones book. I was at his booth. They gave me a pen.
Nice.
Very nice people. Then, so on that, then, well, you need the state by state approval. Do you? Yeah. Because most states have no guidelines, which means it is de facto approved. Right. It would be something they would need to create a framework to restrict, but it's already approved. But you would rather have the framework in place so that you don't launch and a month later the framework arrives and it's problematic.
Right.
So I'm not worried about that. The only thing holding back robotaxi, in my view, is the technology, and when it is determined to be sufficiently safe that we can advance the rollout. It may be that safe today, but you want to make sure. You don't want, as Elon pointed out, you don't want the bad press of a mistake that could have been avoided, and you don't want the harm. On Optimus, much like Cybercab, as long as Optimus is sold with a steering wheel, I'll be fine. So I can do a piggyback ride, and people would buy that like hotcakes. Guys, people don't buy hotcakes. Trust me on this one. It is included with your breakfast. Just move on. Optimus, what's holding it back? I don't know. And they're very good at not telling us. Optimus version 3 is not going to be a do-all miracle. It's not going to be what cures all woes. What it's going to be is a robot that can do 5 to 10% of what a human can do, about as quickly, maybe half as quickly, and do it 20, 22 hours a day, maybe 24. That robot is enough to enter the market. I don't need the dexterity of a raccoon in version 1. I don't need it ever. I hope that's something that's sold separately for applications that require surgical precision, but to spend that much money on a hand for it to dig a ditch, I think would be a tremendous waste of resource. It would be something that can do a variety of tasks, but not all tasks. And a lot of tasks could be updated over the air, but the version 4, the version 5, those would see dramatic cost decreases, dramatic capability increases. So what's holding Optimus back? A desire for a better product. They could sell 2.5 today, and a whole lot of customers would be very happy with it. But that would be a distraction. As soon as you've got product to service, you have less resource to engineer the next product. Let's focus on the next product because it's going to be that much better.
Probably the biggest thing coming in 2026 that nobody pays any attention to, because first of all, they don't pay any attention to semi, and then they pay even less attention to semi-autonomous. And then to boot, the semi-autonomous we were led to believe by many smart people that autonomous on semi would be a 2028 project. I mean, we're talking about years from now before they would allow 80,000-pound vehicles to be driving up and down the freeway at 65 miles an hour. So, but now we're told by the semi people, the folks running that department, that no, it'll be autonomous in the first half of 2026. What do you know? What do you hear? What are you thinking about? Because this is like one of the biggest, it's going to have such an impact on grocery prices and any price of things once there's more than 12.
So for a long time, I was on Team Platoon. And I think it was Brian Wang who said, nope, they're going to skip that step. And I am convinced, and I think it was Brian Wang who said it. I am convinced that he is right, that that adds a whole bunch of new logistical challenges and training and implementation when it would be a solution that would work for like 6 to 18 months. And then we'd be past it and we'd think, boy, why did we bother with that intermediate step? What you're going to see with autonomy on semi is what you saw with cars. You're not going to go from full driven to no human involved. You're going to roll out autopilot, then enhanced, then supervised FSD. There are going to be a lot of applications, especially early on, that just don't work for a Tesla semi running FSD. You've got loads of different lengths, of different weights, and backing up semis with the trailer for different lengths is a completely different dynamic. For FSD, if you had 15 different, 20, 30 different trailers out in the yard and asked the semi to back each of them to the correct door, I think it would struggle with some of them because they're all different in ways that a human would understand from very limited trial and error. A machine might struggle a bit more because it's a weird dynamic. So they don't have a lifetime of experience before they get behind the wheel the way a human does. So I think we're going to see it primarily in drive instead of reverse, starting primarily with the highways, the easiest part of the drive. And NHTSA would be crazy to put restrictions on driver safety assist systems. And I don't know that they have the authority to anyhow. Is cruise control illegal? Right. I don't think so. Well, what about cruise control that can also hit the brakes if I get too close? Well, yes, allow that. Well, what if it sees a stop sign that the driver, can it automatically brake? Well, yeah, it can do that. You see where I'm going, right?
I do.
So I think that's what we'll see.
So some of the other factories, truck factories already have fully autonomous trucks on the road, and they seem to be doing point-to-point deliveries on the same exact highway over and over again so that they can get the miles. That's kind of, and Tesla announced last week that the first customer is going to be Tesla. Well, Tesla uses massive numbers of semis to bring in raw materials into the factories to ship out finished, or to ship out components between the factories, to ship out finished product out of the factories to destinations. And a lot of that is point to point. It would seem to me that that would be the smart way, would be to go ahead and put, I mean, use the safety rider for as long as you need, but almost immediately start putting these point-to-point, same highway, same destination. And yes, if you want to train it to back the load in, fine, but it's not really a big deal. You can unhook at the other end and have a different vehicle back it in if you, or not even unhook, get a driver in the cab and have him back it in. Yeah.
If you had one or two drivers just sitting at the hub all day, most of the miles Tesla has racked up fleet wide on the semi is on the constant run between Giga, Nevada and Fremont. Right. All day, trucks are rolling back and forth between the two. I assume bringing materials to Nevada and, of course, bringing back the battery packs. It would make sense. There are a number of companies already testing semis completely autonomously. Aurora is one that's operating in Texas. You can look them up on the Texas Department of Transportation website. Texas has a fantastic framework for autonomous testing. And that company is listed, and you can click on it and see what they're doing.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to be one of the things I'm just going to be paying tons of attention to. It's very exciting to me. All right. This is the end, Brian, of part one, our Monday night show. And I certainly appreciate the fact that you found time in your travels to break. Well, one last thought. Should people, there's an opportunity for a Christmas gift out there that people could buy. And I'm not talking about the Cybertruck, although I am talking about the Cybertruck bottle opener. But in addition to that, could you recommend a Christmas gift that people might want to buy for their kids or their grandkids?
Well, gift cards are kind of played out, so I wouldn't go that route. Perfume, you never know if that's going to go over well. I'd get them like a book or something.
Oh,
I know there's one on Amazon right now called AI Rising by Randy Kirk, Brian Wang, the Gibbs twins, and many others, myself included. It's getting great reviews, and I had fun participating in it.
all right. So people buy the book, buy the book. Brian, thank you as always for jumping on board. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.